You may have seen my video from last week where I tried to run at the same speed Eliud Kipchoge ran at for almost 2 hours to complete his marathon in 2019. I lasted 2 minutes. This week, it's the turn of cycling to demonstrate just how far removed I am from an elite athlete. But straight away, I ran into a bit of a problem with deciding who from the world of bikes to use and then how to measure their performance. With the running, it was very easy because Kipchoge's record just stands out as such an obvious superhuman achievement. It just had to be him, and we know the pace he ran at, so I just copied it. And to then further simplify things, I just ignored that he's pretty lightweight and I like some donuts, so the amount of work I had to do for 2 minutes was probably much greater than he would have had to do over any 2-minute period. But how can you really measure that, and is it even fair to detract from what he'd accomplished by highlighting that in many ways I was better?
Surely you can't be serious.
But cycling is a bit different because the work done is actually very simple to measure. Any modern bike is going to tell you the wattage that you're generating, and actually the speed that you're riding at and therefore how far you go, unlike running, is influenced by so much more than what you're doing. The bike you're on, how aerodynamic you are, the surface you're riding on, even the altitude that you ride at all contribute to your outcome. So I did some research on what people regard as a standout cycling performance, and one person doing one thing kept being mentioned. Bradley Wiggins. Back in 2015, he rode just under 55 kilometers in 1 hour, at the time the 1 hour record. Now since then, that record has actually been broken by Victor Campenaerts. Victor. It's now slightly above 55 kilometers, but as I just mentioned, because of things beyond what Victor was actually doing, things like his weight and size, his aerodynamics, he did it almost 2,000 meters above sea level, so thin air, the power that he actually needed to generate to achieve that record was 330 watts versus Wiggins, who averaged 440 watts. And 440 watts, that sounds like a lot for a long time, I think. My only experience of such a thing is back when I tried to do 2 minutes at as high an average wattage as was possible. That was following a race that had been won by Filippo Ganna, where for the final 2 minutes of that race, he pushed 590 watts. So I rode for 2 minutes to see if that was tough. Turns out it was. I got 505 watts. In fact, the only positive outcome from that was that YouTube cycling celebrity Chris Pritchard had recently tried the same challenge and I beat him. He then did go and blame his poor choice of motivational music.
And you know what I'm going to go for? I'm going to go for Blur Song 2.
But I'm not responsible for his ridiculous reliance on 90s Britpop when the Rocky IV soundtrack was just as available to him as it was to me. So I can do 505 watts for 2 minutes, which is a bit more power than I need for Wiggins, and I also have a little experience of pedalling a little less powerfully in that I've climbed Alpe d'Huez Zwift under an hour a few times at around 100 kilos in weight, and that works out at about 320 watts for 60 minutes. So I did some very simplistic maths. If I can do 505 watts for 2 minutes and 320 watts for 60 minutes, 440 watts in the middle, about half an hour. And even as I say that out loud, it does seem unlikely. But just as I was working out if I even have time for such a long-winded challenge, I found this video where the Global Cycling Network YouTube channel have tried exactly this challenge. How long at 440 watts? And they used an amateur, an enthusiast, and a pro, which is awesome because the Kipchoge running challenge, I was destined to clearly just fail astronomically. I wasn't going to match him, and so it simply came down to how far behind I was going to be. But this time, I might not match Wiggins' hour, but I now have 3 others in the mix, so potentially the opportunity of beating somebody. So how do those guys do? This is their amateur.
George is going to assume the role of our amateur/rookie. George works in an office and he really likes cycling, but he hasn't been doing it very long.
Okay, I've also worked in an office, and my Wahoo kicker bike was the first road bike, if you can even call it that I ever rode. And that was just a couple of years ago. So it's a fair comparison.
That's it, you failed.
Their amateur got 46 seconds. They seem to have confused amateur with my mum. I'm sorry, George, don't quit the office job. Their enthusiast. 3 minutes 50. That doesn't seem very good either. At least George was dressed like he was off to the pub. This dude, he's got all the gear on and then can't even manage 4 minutes. So they roll out their pro. He's in disguise. Why? I don't know. What some YouTubers regard as comedic is just beyond me.
It's been like 43 minutes. can't believe you're not bored yet.
But his cycling is impressive. 46 minutes. I did search through Chris Pritchard stuff to see if he'd ever had a go at this, maybe listen to a bit of All Saints or something. But it seems not. So it's me versus the Global Cycling Network versus Wiggins. We have ourselves a challenge. Okay, we're ready to go. In case you're wondering why I'm dressed as though it's absolutely freezing in here, it's because it's absolutely freezing in here. I can't even feel my fingers. Everything is set up though. As a measure of how serious I'm taking this, I've actually gone into Zwift and created my own workout program. I had to learn how to do it and everything. I've got a 10-minute warm-up. A 10-minute warm-up. It's bizarre, I've never done that before. And then a 2-minute cool down kind of thing after the warm-up, just to get my breath back. Not really used to doing warm-ups. And then I've got a window of 440 watts for 1 hour. That may be a little optimistic. I will see how long I can go at 440 watts. I'm not sure if I have a target. I'll think about that while I'm warming up. Also, as another measure of how serious I'm taking this, Jenny yesterday bought donuts, and the donut that was provisionally for me that I've said I don't want is in the kitchen. I haven't eaten it. I just still haven't eaten it. That's how serious I'm taking all my training right now. I would show you video of the donut, but if I video it, I'll eat it. I'll get one of my kids to take a selfie with it and send me the photo. That might be safe, or safest. Okay, on the bike. Okay, spoiler alert, I don't die. Not exactly anyway. Let me take you through the ride, and I should cover the obvious first of all. I'm big and heavy, so generating quite a bit of power for a short time is easier than if I was me but 20% lighter. As a result, when I suggested this challenge, a few people said to me to make it a true comparison to Wiggins' achievement, I should use watts per kilo, basically adjusting my power output for my weight. It was mentioned that 690 watts would make it mathematically even, but I disagree. A, where were the ooh but you're heavy people when I was dying on the treadmill last week? You cannot have your cake and eat it, or your donuts. B, I don't think the relationship between watts and speed, and therefore distance, how far you go, works in quite that way. I am heavier than Wiggins, but on a flat surface, is the effect of gravity impacting my forward momentum that much differently? I get on a climb, it obviously makes a bigger difference. But I think if you added some weight to Wiggins' bike, but then gave him 690 watts to play with, he would go much faster. And C, it's irrelevant, because quite frankly, it's disgusting weight shaming to suggest that I should be in some way disadvantaged because of my size. If even Joe Rogan said those sort of things tomorrow, Spotify would throw in the towel.
Okay, relax.
So in the spirit of body positivity and being kind to one another, I'm going to pretend there's no difference whatsoever in size and weight between me and Bradley Wiggins. And he does appear to wear the same size t-shirt as me anyway. Okay, 1 minute to go. Then we go for it. Once I start, I'm going to be playing Rocky IV, obviously, which means the audio on this is going to have to come down, because you can't listen to Rocky IV, because otherwise YouTube get very upset. Stallone wants his money, so I have to turn that off.
You just don't turn it off!
There's also a storm outside, so there's lots of wind noise anyway. Heart rate currently only around 120, so it feels good. 4 seconds, 3, 2, it's rock and roll. Oh, that's spicy. 440 watts. Holy moly. Okay, 10 seconds done. First 10 seconds, not too bad. Okay, 20 seconds done, that's obscene. 440 watts is officially nuts. Oh man, I'm gonna need Rocky at 1 minute, I reckon. Oh, good grief. Okay, try and focus on using the full revolution of the pedal. Pull up, push over, push down. That's not really helping. That is burning. 1 minute. George, crushed you, mate. Holy moly. That is bonkers. Okay, I'm going to bring my cadence up a bit and see if spinning faster. Nope, that just hurts more. Okay, right, Echo, play my Rocky playlist.
Your playlist, Rocky on Amazon Music.
Come on! Okay, you can't listen to it anymore. Stating the obvious, ignore the fact that in Zwift world my bike is going up and down hills. That is ignored by the bike. It is just keeping me at a fixed 440 watts. And it is crazy. There's also way more going on in my head here than there was on the run. With the treadmill run, I was just running the only way I knew how to run, given the speed the treadmill was going at. But here on the bike, I was trying to work out whether increasing my cadence would in some way make generating 440 watts easier, or whether focusing on kind of pulling up with my feet and pushing over the top, so basically applying power through the full revolution. It makes it sound like I know what I'm talking about. Would that make generating 440 watts easier? And ultimately, the only benefit of thinking about any of those things did was it just distracted my mind from the pain that my legs were in. And it was a weird sort of fatigue as well, because my heart rate and my breathing weren't crazy high and they weren't maxed out. The first minute, pretty quickly, heart rate rose to around 150 and then steadily plodded up to about mid-high 170s at the end. It was just lower body fatigue at just an insane intensity. Oh, and if you're a Garmin fan, check out the stamina graph. The stamina feature is a new thing that's on the Phoenix 7. It shows how long you can keep going long term and short term. How much have you got left? At this point here, 3 minutes 15 seconds in, 440 watts, and Garmin says you're done. Short term ability has reached 0. You have expired. Luckily for me, and unfortunately for YouTube's enthusiast, Rocky said, no you're not, and I held on for a bit longer. As I watched the footage back, it does occur to me that some people might say, oh, standing up, in those last few seconds, standing up might mean that my effort becomes less comparable to Bradley Wiggins, I guess, because he maintained an aero position throughout his entire challenge. But to those people, I would say this. I'm in my garage and I warmed up with a bobble hat. F off. Go. Off. Harder than it looks. Oh my God. Enthusiast guy, fair play. He's not a large man. So, how the heck he did 3, whatever he did, 50, I don't know. That was ridiculous. And that was that. Absolutely horrific. 4 minutes, 6 seconds, 440 watts, almost made it 1 minute past death according to Garmin. And if I'd been on a real bike, I would have then crashed into the nearest thing to crash into. And so what do we learn? I learned that 440 watts is a lot more than 320. I'd assumed that my Alpe d'Huez climb, 320 watts, was in some way closely comparable. I think I'd formed that opinion based only on 3 and 4 being numbers that are close together. When I explained that theory to Jenna, she pointed out that you would need to increase 320 watts by about 40% almost to get 440. If I increase my 200 kilogram deadlift that way, I get 280 kilograms, I wouldn't move it an inch, despite those numbers still both starting with a 2. Maths. And ultimately, we learn that Bradley Wiggins is quite good on the bicycle, and it is that sort of sports science content that you should be hitting subscribe for right now. Okay, I am done. I have a donut to avoid and another challenge to come up with. I'm quite liking these. If you have any that come to mind, please feel free to suggest them, but I'm not going near a swimming pool, so do not waste your time with that one. A huge thank you to Chris Pritchard, the Global Cycling Network people, and of course, Mr. Bradley Wiggins himself for all of their motivation and inspiration. I hope you found it interesting and fun, and I'll see you on the next one.